Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're joining in from. And a very warm welcome to you to this webinar from Digitay Swift Kanban. The topic today is Discovering Discovery Kanban. So let's get started, and we will start with some of the housekeeping as we let some of the other guests also join in. So we'll do some introductions. We will have a quick introduction to Digitay and Swift Kanban, a quick word from the sponsor. And then I'll hand over the session to our main speaker today and on discovering Discovery Kanban, Anna Radzikowska. And then at the end, we will have a Q&A session, and I look forward to a good spirited discussion on Discovery Kanban based on questions from your side. Some housekeeping. We are recording the webinar as usual, and we will make a copy of the slides and the recording available to you after the webinar. All through the webinar, please feel free to ask your questions using the questions box that you should see on the right side of your screens. And we will take these questions at the end. Hopefully, we'll get to all of the questions that the audience asks. So with that, let's get started. So our main speaker today is Anna Radzikowska. She's product manager with the Kanban maturity model. My name is Mahesh Singh. I'm a co-founder and I'm responsible for marketing and consulting at Digitay. A little bit more about Anna. I've got to know Anna over the last little over a year, I suppose, since the release of the new version of the Kanban maturity model. And it's been great to interact with her over these last several months. Anna has been she's has over 13 years of experience across different roles in finance, training, and project management, working in a variety of different companies in public sector and large companies, as well as, of course, running her own business. She's passionate about the Kaizen culture and the Kanban method. She's certified. She's an ACCA member, accredited, and I'm going to let her explain what that means when she comes on the call. She helps businesses better understand what is the sort of different ways to look at businesses and be able to look at how to implement software development, how to do software development product support with a different perspective. She currently works as a product manager for the Kanban maturity model, which supports, of course, modern businesses in growing into fit-for-purpose organizations. I'll hand over the session to Anna in just a few minutes. Just a quick word about Digitay Swift Kanban. We have been a pioneer in the web-based collaborative products in the enterprise agility space for nearly 2 decades now. We have over 1 million users of our products across the world. And of course, we cover lean Kanban, agile application lifecycle management, and project portfolio management. And our main products in the lean agile space include Swift Kanban, Swifties, as well as Swift Enterprise. We have 3 different products for a variety of different use cases. Our Swift Kanban product is really used heavily in the Kanban, Scrumban use cases, predominantly by the software development and IT organizations in most companies that use Swift Kanban. But we also have other applications in personal Kanban and business functions like marketing, HR, and legal, etc. We have a very strong offering with sort of co-authored with the Kanban University, which is on the enterprise services planning, and we have that as an add-on module. We provide really sophisticated capabilities for enterprise Kanban, portfolio Kanban type of applications, including defining all kinds of hierarchical work that you have in your organizations in different contexts, being able to apply risk modeling to be able to really select the right things at the right time to work on your various business functions, and be able to then do sophisticated predictions and forecasting using techniques such as the Monte Carlo simulation to be able to really become a more predictable, more reliable organization, and to be able to really meet your expectations. We have powerful flow analytics, one of the key things that Swift Kanban is very popular for, and we are quite well known for that. We also support the KMM journey fully throughout your journey with the KMM. So if you want to check out how we do that, you at our some of our white papers that we have in this area. One of the things that we of course do is we integrate with a wide range of tools that we understand our customers already use. So whether you're using an agile tool or other types of application lifecycle management tools, we sit very nicely on top of those tools to be able to give you the flow and enterprise Kanban capabilities that you want to look at, and to be able to really accelerate your Kanban journey. Just a quick look at some of our customers, and so you'll see some recognized names there, as well as other names that you might not. And our customers range from a few tens of people to tens of thousands of people, and we're able to sort of scale to different levels of organizations. So with that, I'm going to hand over the session to Anna. Anna, a very warm welcome, and thank you for doing this.
Thank you very much. Let me first share my screen, and then we can get started. Okay, so hello once again, this time from me. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I know that you are spread around the world. It's rather late afternoon here in Krakow. I'm still in Krakow, Poland, and it's very snowy, it's very cold, so we have winter, not for Christmas, but this time. But never mind, winter finally arrived. I hope that where you are is a bit warmer than here. And my name is Ania Radzikowska. Thank you very much to Digite, to Mahesh, to Nishant for preparing this webinar, for inviting me. I would like to tell you today, just one thing. I would like to tell you more today about the Discovery Kanban. And today I'm representing David J. Anderson School of Management. What I'm doing every day, I'm a product manager for Kanban maturity model, but I'm also a trainer. So I teach a lot, and I teach mostly with focus on Discovery Kanban. So before we move on, maybe just a few words about myself and explaining what ACCA is. So actually, I'm not a product manager, by education. By education, I'm a historian. So I graduated history at Yale University. But back then, many years ago, when I finished my studying time, there was actually no work for historians. So I had to do something to live and to pay my mortgage. So what I could do, I just started working in big companies. There is a lot of this kind of companies in Krakow, and I started my accountant journey. And a few years ago, I joined ACCA. This is Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, better known as ACCA, just ACCA. So we are accountants all over the world, and this is an association that helps people to grow, to leverage their knowledge, but also to share experience about what they are doing. And working in finance, I focused on finance management and treasury area. And this was my passion, this was my hobby, but also this was my work. And back then, a lot of people from IT came to me and they said, Anna, we need some requirements, please help us with our IT projects. So we need to build this and this application for you, of course, for you. Yeah. So I said, okay, I will do it. And this way I learned by experience how to be BA. And I moved a bit only to the project management. So I still was one leg in the business, generally speaking, but I also moved to the project management. Then I started to learn more and get interested in what project management is and how to build software, how to build applications. And first I learned about the PMI and how to deal with the projects using the PMI methods. Then, of course, Lean Six Sigma. This is, I think, was the most popular in Krakow back then. And then, naturally, I moved to all, let's name them, agile frameworks, methodologies, methods, umbrella. And first of all, of course, I learned about Scrum. But then, a few years ago, I heard about Kanban. And, it was 4 years ago, I learned about Kanban and I fell in love with Kanban. And I will tell you why. Because Kanban, and you might have heard that Kanban is for the teams, that Kanban is just a board for support teams, for maintenance stuff. And this is not true. And this is what I can justify by my own example. Kanban is for everyone, and Kanban is perfect for finance guys too. So we can not only use Kanban to support building products for us, but we can also use Kanban to support our daily life as finance people, preparing reports, preparing our financial statements, etc., etc. And but what I heard when I became a team leader of a team of business analysts, there were 4 of us, all ladies. What I heard from them and what I also experienced was that actually everyone forgets about them. So what was the experience? What was the feeling? That the BA's work, gathering requirements, gathering information, defining what client really needs, is not very well described in any of the methods that we have learned about and that we have used in our work. And I shared this feeling, and these people coming to me said, I'm sitting at daily meeting, I'm sitting at retrospective, I'm sitting at planning, and I don't know whether I should even be here, whether I should sit with developers. Maybe I'm not welcome here. So what can I do? Where can I read about myself? How can I understand what I should really do? And this is what wasn't very well described, but this is what we decided to finally cover in more details, not only reading about it, but also teaching about it. And in Kanban, we have right now the place where we care for you, for BAs, where we care for you, for SMEs, subject matter experts, for everyone from business, from the client area, and every other stakeholder who is not in the delivery system. And what is delivery system in a moment? So what we'll cover today, what is the plan for today? We'll start what discovery or upstream Kanban is, because you may know the word upstream Kanban. Then we'll talk about the storm of ideas, so how to deal with this. And we'll continue with this fusion cuisine. So we'll talk about weather, we'll talk about geometry, medicine, and also a bit about finance management. And finally, yes, there is also a client. So we'll also talk about client. So how to satisfy our client. So as I said, in Kanban, we have created a place where we care for you, dear BAs, dear SMEs, dear clients. And this place is called Upstream Kanban. And Upstream Kanban is the original name, the old name. Right now, we rather use the word Discovery Kanban, and I will tell you why. I'm not sure whether we have only native speakers in this call or not. Native English speakers, of course. But upstream, downstream Kanban, these words are a bit imaginary. And especially if you try to translate, so if we have any non-native speakers, please think about translating the word upstream to your own language. Translating it into Polish is a nightmare. So we've been looking for a better word for it. So right now we talk about the discovery Kanban, but this is the secondary problem. So the first book, and actually right now the only book about the upstream Kanban, is Essential Upstream Kanban by Patrick Steyert. And you can access this book, you can download this book from Kanban University pages. Also from the same place, you can download and read about the case study from Patrick. This is Kia engineering case study. And it describes how Patrick introduced the upstream Kanban, which wasn't back then the upstream Kanban, but how he introduced all of these concepts to help this Kia company, the organization, to manage the process, not only delivery process, because the actual delivery process was managed pretty well, but the whole end-to-end process from the customer idea to the delivery point. So this is our heritage, and this is our base and foundation, and we use it now to expand this knowledge and to expand this area. And when you think about the upstream Kanban or discovery Kanban, this is everything before the commitment point, okay? So before this commitment point, we have some pool of ideas. So there are some requests that some people, maybe customers, not necessarily customers, drop to this pool of ideas. And then there are some people who do some work to define some requirements and, and finally developers can pick up from the top of the backlog and deliver the work. But this sum, which is somehow still clouded, we need to uncloud right now. So we need to understand what really happens in the upstream Kanban. We need to discover the knowledge about these ideas so that these ideas, this request, can be delivered to delivery system and can be then delivered to the customer as a ready evaluable solution. And when you look at the cover of Patrick's book, you can see the funnel on this cover. So this funnel is of course white on the top, and then it's narrowing, and then you have just narrow pipe, which ideally should be a delivery system. And why is that? Because when you think about your pool of ideas, you have a lot of things there. And all of these things, all of these ideas have mothers. Of course, sometimes fathers, but we just use the mother figure. So each idea has a mother. And mother really loves her child. And for the mother, the child is the most beautiful, the most perfect, the most wonderful in the whole world. And the same is with the ideas. So each idea has a mother, and this idea to the mother is the most beautiful and the most wonderful in the whole world, even if the idea is, I need you to upgrade my report. So this is one of the requests I received from one of our clients. What does it mean to upgrade the report? What report? By what upgrades? No idea, but this is what I was asked to do. So a mother always sees her child as the most beautiful and the most perfect, but this perception is not necessarily shared by the rest of the world. And now the rest of the world, so people in the upstream system, need to think more about it and need to discover more about this request. And sometimes they need to make mother realize that her idea, her beautiful child, is maybe not necessarily the most beautiful child in the whole world. And this discovery process happens in the upstream system. So from the whole list, from this whole set of ideas in the pool of ideas, step by step, slowly, we need to discover what should be delivered to our clients, to our mothers, and what this client not necessarily even wants, but what the client really needs. So this is our role, to discover what our client needs. And why we even think about this, the fact that we need to narrow the number of ideas, because in upstream, we talk about options. And this is a very important word here. And if I want you to remember one thing from this webinar, please remember that in upstream, in Discovery Kanban, we work with options, and options are optional. And why should you even bother? So why should you even think about discovering these requirements, about narrowing the number of ideas, about making it understandable for delivery system? Maybe we should just accept everything what's there and do it. Our customers want it, so let's do it for them, make them happy. But think about it as a pizza restaurant. So in Kanban, we love pizza examples. So also this time I will show you the pizza example. So imagine you come into the pizza restaurant, you open menu, you open your menu, and you see, oh, there is Hawaiian pizza with pineapple and ham. Is there any other pizza in this menu? No, unfortunately not. There is only one pizza, you have no choice. Means you have no options. And think about yourself. Do you want to enter the restaurant and have only one option, not option, have only one position in menu? Probably not. You want to have a choice. So you want to choose out of something. You want to make the conscious decision what you really need today. Maybe you really want this pizza with pineapple and ham, but maybe not necessarily you want to eat this particular one today. So if you want to have a choice in a pizza restaurant, why would you limit yourself in your work, in your Kanban system? Think about your Kanban system as Upstream Kanban system as the menu out of which you want to choose what's the best for you that particular day. And how to deal with options. Now a bit of finance management theory. So we'll be talking about real options, and real options are real choices. And here you can see on the screen 3 Kanban options, Kanban real options. So invest, shelf, discard. I will talk about them in a moment, but I would like to take 2 minutes of your time to talk about investment real options, from financial management. And in finance management, we have 4 real options, not 3, but 4. And these options are option to abandon, option to delay, expand, and redeploy. And now, a few words about each of them. Option to abandon, you have to make an investment decision. You have a project, you have any other kind of investment, you create an appraisal of this investment, and you realize that even if you invest a lot of money into this project, you still make losses. So how we call it NPV, net present value. So you see that your net present value in 5-10 years, sometimes into perpetuity, will be negative. So you don't want to invest in such project. You don't want to deal with this investment, so you abandon it. And this is one of the options, I guess that the easiest one. But you don't have only 2 options, so either invest or abandon. You have also 3 other options which may help you to deal with different scenarios in your life, in your projects and investments. So the second option is option to delay. And it means that you are in the situation when, for example, there are current circumstances which don't allow you to pick up this project, this investment right now. Say we have now a COVID around us, and we know that we have an investment that in the COVID situation will not be beneficial. Say we really want to open a restaurant, but right now opening a restaurant maybe not the best choice and the best idea. So what we do, we delay this decision because this investment some months, some years in the future still may make sense, but not now. So we have option to delay. You may also want to delay because you are missing a component. So say you are building a software, and to make it fully functional or to create a software that brings a value to your customer, you are missing an important component, and you know that this component is being built right now. You just need to wait a bit. So that's why you delay the start of investing in a project. The third option is option to expand. This is a bit similar to the option to delay, so you are still negative in terms of net present value, but I think something else, expanding your project or maybe merging 2 projects will make it valuable, will make your NPV positive figure, which means that you don't delay this project, but you just start it now, but you need to expand what you are doing. And the fourth one is option to redeploy, which means that you know this investment doesn't make sense, it brings losses to you, but you have already invested in it, and or you say created MVP, you made some prototypes, you made some testing, and you can use what you have already created. So for that, first, all of the cost that you already carried is a sunk cost, and you need to write it off. But what you have built, you redeploy in other investment, in other project, and this way it may become the option to expand for this other investment. And now, how does it correlate to real options in Kanban? So in Kanban, we see 3 options. Why not 4? I will tell you in a second. So invest, shelf, discard. Invest is the easy one. So you see that it really makes sense to invest in an idea, and you know that the level of uncertainty is very low. So you are rather sure that investing your time, your money in discovering this idea, discovering this request really makes sense. So you move forward with this one. On the other side of the scale, you have discard options, and discard options mean that, again, uncertainty level is very low, and you really know that you don't want to invest in this one, because no matter what you are going to do, this will be loss of money, this will be loss of time. And in the middle, we have the most interesting one, I believe, shelf option. So this is kind of a delay option. You either don't know, and level of uncertainty is very high. You are not sure whether you want to invest in it or whether you want to discard this option. You simply don't know yet. Or you know it will make sense to invest in it, but in some time. So for this, you shelve the option. Why we don't have the option to redeploy? Because from Kanban perspective and Kanban design perspective, it's combined option to discard and invest. So redeploying, when you think about your Kanban system design, would be first closing the request. So you close the request, you discard this request, and you reuse what you have learned. You create a new request, or you just add this information to existing request. So in that sense, option to redeploy in Kanban is option to discard plus invest. And this is what you should do at each step of your discovery process. So say you have a process which consists of pool of ideas, then some risk analysis, procedure reading, and design. Yeah? At each of these steps, you reach the point, which I will cover in a moment. This is a point of diminishing returns. And at this point, you need to decide whether you want to invest, discard, or shelve. So whether you want to bring forward this item and discover more about it, or maybe you know that it doesn't make sense, you don't want to do it, you discard this item, or maybe you don't know yet, you shelve this item for a second. So this is one of the techniques that you apply to the Upstream Kanban, to Discovery Kanban, to manage the demand. The second one is triage. So I guess that you have heard a lot already about triage, maybe from our pages and sources, maybe from the triage tables, but not necessarily, because triage comes from a completely different environment. This comes from the warfare and also from the medicine. So triage was born in 19th century. Very precise date is not, apologies. Very precise date is not known, but we refer to the Crimean Wars in the middle of 19th century. And this was the time when the rifles and the guns started to be more and more in use. And what people working at the war field had to deal with were wounded soldiers, of course, and the level of wounds and what we call bleeding to death was different. So we have seen three levels of urgency in treating the soldiers. Right now, we also observe in the hospitals, at emergency rooms, and we have much more levels, but in Kanban, we refer to these three. So the first one is a soldier is wounded that much that no matter what you do, he's going to die. The other part of the scale is a soldier that is slightly wounded. So actually, no matter what you are going to do, he will survive. And in the middle, again in the middle, we have the soldier who is heavily wounded, and he will survive if you help him immediately, like right now. And from the Kanban perspective, we ask the question, and I will quote David here. We need a metaphorical equivalent of what's the rate the patient is bleeding to death. And I put the patient in the quotation because the patient in our Kanban system is the request, is the idea. So we ask the question, how urgent for us is to deal with this particular request? Is it super urgent? So if we take care for it immediately, if we expedite this item, it will survive. Or maybe this item is not urgent and actually we can shelve it for a moment and come back to it later. Or maybe this request is beyond any help, so we should just discard it. And this is how you combine triage with real options. But in triage, the question is about the urgency. Not necessarily about uncertainty, but about the urgency. And what to do, how to start, actually. So all beautiful Scrum people, please excuse me for this very raw draft, but this is a very raw draft of the backlog. So in the bottom of the backlog, you have high-level epics requirements. You don't know it very well yet. On the top, the items are already very well defined, and you can just start working with them. So what to do when you want to start mapping it to the Kanban? You just tilt it like this. You tilt it 90 degrees to my right, and on your tilted backlog, you put the Kanban system. So on the left-hand side, you will have your new ideas. So what in the backlog was not very well described area of requirements of clients' needs. And the closest to the right, but by right here, I mean the middle, so the commitment point, you have the ideas that are ready for delivery team. So delivery team can start working on them. And here's the very important concept of the commitment point. So I guess that you may know it, but just for the records, a commitment point is the moment when both sides, so upstream discovery Kanban and downstream delivery Kanban, commit that on one hand, upstream system says, we know what it is, we understand this request, we know that we want you to deliver it for us. And when you start work on it, we commit, we are not going to change our mind. So we'll not withdraw this item from the delivery system. On the other hand, on the right-hand side of the commitment point, you have delivery system, and delivery system says, we understand this item, we know what it is, and we have capacity to start working on it. And if we commit to it, it means that we will deliver this work for you. Sometimes the commitment is perceived that this is only the delivery side part. Yeah, so delivery system needs to commit, and the upstream system can just push everything there on the pile. No, this is not true. So commitment is on both sides, on the upstream side and on the downstream side. This is two-side commitment, and this is very important to understand because this is also the matter of accountability for what we are doing, for the outcomes of our work. And in upstream system, there is also one interesting thing that you can see here, which says in the column ready minimum 6, but actually minimum and maximum work in progress limits. This is something, one of the things that differentiates upstream system from the downstream system. So in the downstream system, you only have this maximum work in progress limits, yeah, like 4, 2, 2 on this on the screen. But in the upstream system, at each step, at each phase of discovering knowledge, you normally set the minimum and maximum limit. And why is that? You set the minimum limit because, first of all, you want to have your options. You want to have the minimum number of options in your system. So coming back to the pizza restaurant, when you open your menu, you want to have a choice. On the other hand, you don't want to starve your system. So you want to make sure that there is always something in the system to work on. On the other hand, you want to have the maximum limit because imagine you come into the pizza restaurant, you open the menu, and this menu has 20 pages, and on each page you have 10 items. So you had 200 items, and after half an hour, waiter comes to you and he says, can we take your order, sir? And you say, actually, no, I'm just at page 10 and still 10 to go. So you don't want to have too many items in your system. You don't want to overload your system. So this is similar as for the downstream. You want to avoid overburdening, also in upstream. So establish minimum and maximum limits. And what if you don't have a backlog? What if you don't work with a backlog right now? You still can have upstream system, of course. So how to start? Visualize the process of knowledge discovery, because this is the same for upstream, the same for downstream. This is still the knowledge discovery process. Define commitment point. Defining commitment point helps you to determine where is this moment when you need to know what you want to deliver. This is this final decision. Yes, this is something what we need you to do for us. Create explicit policies. So how you manage options. So what does it mean that you can invest? What does it mean that you need to discard? What is the definition of ready for the next phase? What are your triage criteria? Introduce replenishment meeting. So replenishment meeting, this is the one that happens on the right, on the red vertical line. So replenishment meeting is the moment of commitment. And understand the point of diminishing returns. So I very shortly mentioned about it, but this is actually a very important concept for the whole upstream system. And to visualize it, you can look at this graph on the right hand side. So this graph shows on vertical line time and cost. So time flies, costs are incurred. And on the vertical line, you have confidence increase, you have uncertainty decrease. And when you start collecting information, normally at the beginning, this is concave function. Yeah. So at the beginning, you see that your level of uncertainty decreases pretty quickly, your confidence increases pretty quickly, and you gather a lot of information in a very short time. Yeah, so this function goes like this. But you will notice that at some point of time, despite the fact that you work on it, so this is not that you sit and don't do anything, but you still work on gathering information, you do the research, you talk to other people, you read the procedures, and you see that time flies, but no new information arrives. There are no more benefits from your effort of gathering more information. Confidence doesn't increase that much anymore. And this is the point of diminishing returns, so this red line. And this is the moment when you make a decision. Do we invest? Do we discard? Do we shelve? So when you think about the real options and how to apply real options, you apply real options in altogether with this point of diminishing returns concept. So you need to understand how your process of discovering knowledge looks and where is your point of diminishing returns. Quick tip how to recognize it. You have replenishment meetings, say, every week. And you met a week earlier. Now we have first day, we meet again, and you sit around the table on Zoom call or whatever tool call, and you realize that talking about the options in your system, thinking about what can be committed as the next piece of work, you don't have nothing. Actually, nothing changed from the previous meeting. And this may indicate two things. First, your replenishment meeting happens too often, so maybe you should change the frequency. But it may also be a signal that you have reached the point of diminishing returns. So although you have worked for the whole week trying to gather more information, actually you didn't. So this is the moment when you need to take a decision, what to do next with this idea. And the last part of this presentation of mine is scaling Kanban. And actually, finally, we talk about client. Yeah, so this client was somewhere there, echoing all the time in my talk. But now let's focus on client and let's focus on scaling Kanban. So when I was in the kindergarten, I remember it pretty well. Before each breakfast, we've been sitting around the tables, like 3, 4, 5 years old children, and the bowls with meat with the meal were in front of us, and we couldn't start eating until the teacher came to us, and she always said, "Good morning, children," and we said, "Good morning," and then "Bon appetit, children," and we said, "Oh, bon appetit, dear teacher," and then we could start eating. And it really resonated very strongly with me last year when I attended Train the Trainer class with two wonderful teachers, so Bianca Hrifion and Susan Bortel. This card is for you. And I remember that every day, every single day, Susan came to us and she asked, "How do we scale Kanban?" And I had this teacher in mind. So I was hearing Susan saying, "Dear children, how do we scale Kanban?" And children in the class say, "We do more Kanban, dear Susanna." And we repeated it every day. So you will wake me up in the middle of the night. I will tell you, we do more Kanban if you ask me how do we scale Kanban. But what does it mean in the context of upstream? Why do I even say about it? Because when you start designing your upstream system, you start scaling Kanban. So you have your delivery system, and you created this commitment point for your delivery system, and then you think, okay, what happens before? Yeah, and maybe we need to design it somehow. And you start designing this upstream system. You start to uncloud your upstream system. And by adding something left to your delivery system, you already scale Kanban. If you remember, we scale Kanban in 3 dimensions, high in depth and in width. So making your Kanban system wider, expanding it to the right and to the left, you scale Kanban. So designing and adding your Kanban, your upstream Kanban to your delivery Kanban, you scale Kanban, you make it wider. And discovery Kanban is a kind of client interface to your delivery Kanban system. And it really helps you to focus on customer needs, customer expectations, and also it helps you to integrate and to involve the customer in the process of knowledge discovery. Because when you design your upstream system, it doesn't mean that you work on this system by yourself. You may and you are welcome to invite customers in this process of discovering knowledge. Because in the end, you deliver this request, to deliver these products, the service for them, not for yourself, I hope. And so that's why it's very important to consider customer in designing the whole system. This is just a sneak peek. So right now we teach discovery Kanban in Kanban for Design and Innovation class. So I could spend another 16 hours with you talking about real options, triage, and the other stuff. So this is just a very, very short sneak peek. I just presented the techniques that you can start using even from tomorrow. I hope that you will find something interesting in it. So I hope to see you at the class. And you can also read about it, of course, in Kanban maturity model. So this is my baby girl, my idea that I have to discover. Of course, the book by David Anderson and Theodora Borzhewa. And the second baby girl is KMM Plus. So you can also read about KMM Plus. You can read the KMM content in KMM.plus. So feel free to jump in there and read more about the upstream system, downstream system, and many more things and ideas coming from David and Theodora's heads and experience. Thank you very much for your time. And now back to Mahesh.
Thank you, Anna. This is a great presentation. But leave it there in case people have questions on the specific slides that you might have, that you have. So folks, if you are already practicing Discovery Kanban, Upstream Kanban, or if you are looking into implementing it, please go ahead and ask questions using the questions box here. Anna, let me start with something that we ourselves face as a product company. The challenge for us is that it is very hard to either shelve or to discard. There are multiple stakeholders, and everybody has a certain level of attachment. Like the mother, they have attachment to their ideas, their options, and it becomes a battle of who has the biggest voice in the room.
Yes.
to decide whether we should discard something or shelve something, or to prioritize it and do it. So what are the typical behaviors that you've seen in organizations that are struggling with that issue? Most of the time the problem is, I believe, especially in software and IT, that there are too many options, and
Yes.
it is very hard to choose between them. So what are some of the best practices that you recommend
Mhm.
to your customers about how to prioritize?
Mhm. Okay, the third topic. The question is huge. Okay. So
Yes.
again, very very short questions, and I know this the answers the answers may be shortcuts. So apologies if you don't feel satisfied, but I'm happy to elaborate more offline. So two tips that come to my mind very quickly, and the tips that we actually suggest to our trainees, because they ask about it, and this is like a normal problem, I would say. So yeah, as I said, every idea has a mother, and maybe it will be brutal, but sometimes if the child is really, really ugly and no one wants it, we should abandon abandon it, or we should discard this child. And what David always says, when mother really loves the child, she will come back for it. So this is one of the options. So when you see that you have an idea that is there for a long time and no one really cares for it, or maybe it cares, but you need to prioritize something more important, then you may just discard this idea, of course, with reasoning, yeah. And if the mother really loved the idea, she will come back for it. And another, like, more specific technique is what we call the time guillotine. So it applies to the shelved options. When you have the option which is which you shelve, but you are not really sure what's going on, whether you should shelve it more or you should discard it. And this happens especially in the situation when you have more options that you would like to shelve. So this is like a freezer. Yeah, you open the freezer and you see that this is full, so you have to take something out before you put something new in there. And this is the question: what do you do? What do you take out? And it's good to introduce the time guillotine, and this should be included in the policy for the shelf options. And you say that in my case, we decided that shelf options will be shelved for say 2 months. Yeah, and if after 2 months we see that no new information arrived and we are not able to make any decision, we discard this option. So time guillotine, discarding options, triage again, to decide what is urgent, what is beyond help. And these are the techniques these are the stressors, yeah, using the Kanban wording, Kanban terms. So yes, they are likely to meet with resistance because unfortunately, in most of the cases which we observe, organizations are not ready to say no. And in upstream system, you need to say no. And when you say no, of course, it means resistance. But this is also the matter of educating people, working with them, making explicit, clear policies. One last thing to this: why it's even important to discard items regularly. And this is the concept that actually I've heard and read for the first time in Don Reinert's book, Principles of Product Development Flow, where he writes about invisible, intangible inventory. So all our ideas that we shelve or we keep in the pool of ideas, this is inventory. They are in inventory, in invisible inventory. This may be inventory of our head if we don't have it visualized. It may be inventory of our Excel file, our folders. So we keep this idea somewhere. And this inventory doesn't come for free. So you don't pay for the warehouse, you don't pay for electricity or for the security in the warehouse where you keep your bananas, yeah? But the ideas are like bananas. So the longer you keep them there, the older they are. So you need to pay for managing them. Say you need to review them every 1, 2 weeks, every month, every year. So you need to spend time on reviewing them, understanding what they are. The older they are, the more difficult it is. Sometimes you see that, and I say it from my own experience, I open one of the projects in one of the systems that we have used in my previous company, and there were 2,000 items. And I got the task, Anya, go through these 2,000 items and do something with them. Cool. And you know, looking at the aging of these items, some of them were 3, 4, 5 years old. And of course, I could trace the requestor. I mean, I could trace the name of the requestor, but sometimes I couldn't trace the person because this person was not working anymore. So what I did back then was killing these ideas, these items, and just waiting for the result. And yes,
Right.
some of them, for some of them, I found them others. So they catch me on the corridor. Anna, what have you done? We work on this. You shouldn't close it. But guys, it's 3 years old. No, but this is still very important. Yeah, and now we could start the discussion. Okay, why it is important? What's in there? But for most of them, no one really cared.
Yep.
But I spent, I think, 2 weeks or more just going through this list.
Cleaning up the whole thing.
Yes, exactly. So this is a real cost. I can translate my salary to hard dollars. I could really spend this time on something more valuable than just going through Excel and reading all of this stuff. So this is what I mean by invisible inventory, which is still which still costs you a lot of time and a lot of money, real money.
Right. Perfect. No, that's a great operational suggestions actually. And this last part is something that we have done regularly at Digit as well. That we will simply take those out, and if somebody complains about it, then we will bring it back if there is enough reason to do it. But like you said, most of the time nobody cares because it's already too old and the value of it is gone. I really like the curve that you showed about the point of diminishing returns. So there is a certain level of effort you put into to discover the value of an option. But beyond that, you got to start to do something. You got to start to actually work on it to discover the rest of the value. And this is something that we do by building prototypes or other things that help along in terms of the discovery of that specific option. And that helps because once you build sort of an intermediate version of that option, it helps people to then further decide whether that is something that is worth pursuing or not. So we kind of detail the upstream portion of our value stream in a slightly more detailed manner so that we can do some of the work upstream and decide whether it's worthwhile to take it downstream or not. So regarding that, there is a question from Martin Ferreira. His question is how much should we extend the upstream visualization in order to uncloud that process? So how typically, what's been your experience of how much upstream can you go? Who are the stakeholders that might be involved? What stages would you typically see?
I'm sorry, but I need to. The short answer is the favorite answer of all trainers and auditors. It depends. Now the longer answer. So don't make it overcomplicated. And so that would be my first advice. And the second, try to trace the journey of the idea from the moment when it appears in your backlog, in your pool of ideas, to the moment when you know that this is it. And like for each Kanban system, map the dominant activities. Yeah. So why I said it depends, because it really depends on your dependencies and what you need to. So you need to understand not only what the work that you cover, but also what dependencies you have. So in terms of scaling Kanban, this is another level of scaling Kanban. This is scaling in depth, yes. So you extend the Kanban network across your company. So first, map what you do, map what's within your area of ownership and responsibility, and then start working with it. And you will probably see dependencies that you have, and then you can start thinking what to do and what to do with Kanban system, how to design these dependencies in your system. Whether maybe you need to create a shared service for them, and maybe you can visualize the dependencies on the ticket, so you can create it like checkboxes. So say you read the procedure, yeah, and now you create, so reading the procedure was one step, then writing requirements, first draft of requirements was the second step, and then you are ready, and you need these requirements to be reviewed by some other people, say risk department, auditors, and so I don't know, marketing. Yeah? So you may include them as a shared service in your system. You can also create the checkboxes. So marketing checked, yeah, sales checked, or auditors read it checked, yeah, and when you receive them back. So there are different techniques how to visualize it, how to deal with this. But yeah, summarizing, shorter answer. First, map the journey of the idea from the moment when it appears to commitment point. Dominant activities, so don't be too detailed, just the main phases of knowledge discovery. And then when you start working with it, look for dependencies you have. So what additionally you need to design into your system.
Right. Perfect. And I can share some aspects of the way that we work with it ourselves in the development of Swift Kanban itself. Is that we have a Upstream Kanban board as a completely separate Kanban board where we have the product management manager, and they divide that into 3 different swim lanes, one for the high-level teams, the next for epics, and then at the bottom we have the user stories, which are basically grouped into a rough plan of how we will release those user stories, and every 2 weeks in the release. So we kind of follow a Spanish approach in the way that we build. Although we can deliver continuously, but we have a release cadence of every 2 weeks. One thing that we also to track, although we are not very good at it yet, is to see how much of that work gets discarded. So we do see, how many ideas or how many options did we build up, but then how many of them actually were never taken up for development. So we try and take that. There's another question regarding, what type of metrics do you use? So for example, do you measure cycle time in your upstream process?
That it depends. It really depends, because there are some upstream processes where you okay, it makes sense to measure your lead time, but it's not the most important part of your system. But there are some upstream processes, like recently discovering the COVID vaccine, where your lead time was very important, yeah, because the whole world was watching. So lead time, cycle time is still important, but not the top priority metric, I would say, for upstream. But there are some other things. So it is important. It's nice to know how long it takes. But there are also some other things that are worth measuring, and actually it opens up another technique for the upstream system, which is called Turbulent Flow. And if you are going to Google it, you will not find it, because this is the name that we just use in the class. And in Turbulent Flow, you observe 3 types of not requests, but 3 types of things that may appear on your upstream system. And I'm telling you what. The first group of things is failure demand. Second is disruptive demand. The third one is unplanned demand or speculative demand. And what is the difference? Failure demand is something what you create for yourself. So say you build something, and this is the quality of what you have built was not very high, and you deliver something what is low quality, and immediately after this you received either change request from your customer or customers found a defect. So this defect, this change request, which will appear again in your system. So it takes the whole circle and it appears again in your system, in your upstream system. This is a failure demand. So you could avoid it just by doing high quality work, for example, or maybe later. The second one is disruptive demand. So this is the work that you do, but it doesn't bring any value. When we think about our XIT case study, the first Kanban case study ever, they did a lot of estimation. And I'm not saying to you right now that you shouldn't do forecasting, you shouldn't look at data, no. But they did estimation which didn't bring any value. So any work that you do, which may be kind of historical practice, we always did it, don't ask why we do it because we always did it. This may be your disruptive demand. So you just do it because you always did it, but is it really needed? Not necessarily. And the third one is unplanned or speculative demand. So this is the situation where you have we have a figure of a manager who is running out of the toilet because he has a brilliant idea. No, this idea is brilliant. We need to do it immediately. I came up with this idea. You need to do it. But what it is, no one knows. But there is a lot of pressure from this manager right now. So we deliver. We delivered, and there is a like huge question mark. What hell is this? Yeah.
Right.
And it results in the change request, and change request is our failure demand. And this is what I refer to maybe. So maybe you have created this demand for yourself by low quality of work, the failure demand, but the failure demand may also be a result of the unplanned demand, earlier unplanned demand. So you have delivered something what you didn't really know. What is this? Why you need it? And but you have delivered it, and now someone wants to use it. But this is crap. So you need to do something with this. And you add more and more demand to your upstream. And now what is the problem? This way we just fall into the spiral of doom. Because the more turbulent flow you create in your upstream system,
right,
the less time you have for your original items, original ideas to discover them. And some of them are really valuable, some of them are really needed and really useful. But because you need to waste your time on solving your turbulent flow, you don't have time for discovering really deeply knowledge about your original demand. And you push this demand to delivery system. You deliver this demand, and you realize that actually you need to do the change request right now, or you need to solve the defect because you didn't have time in your upstream to really discover this piece of work. And this way you create even more and more turbulent flow for yourself. So the only way to solve it is to just stop the spiral of doom. And coming back to the question of metrics, measure the rate of different types of turbulent flow. So what is the rate of your failure demand versus original demand? What is the rate of your unplanned demand? How many items which were failure demand resulted from earlier unplanned demand? Yeah, so you can play with these figures, trying to understand them and minimize them, because you don't want to have turbulent flow. You just want to have your original demand in upstream system.
Okay. All right. So unfortunately, we let it go at that because we are over time, and we have a few other questions that we will get to after the webinar, and I'll share those with you as well, and we can continue the conversation beyond. So thank you so much for doing this webinar. Really enjoyed the conversation, and I hope that everybody else enjoyed it as well. Any parting final comments from your side?
I just want to say thank you, big, huge thank you. I'm a Kanban person, so I love people. I always say that you cannot do Kanban if you don't love people. So I love people. I love to meet with you, and every opportunity like this is for me the most awesome thing that I can do. This is why I was born, to meet with people, and I really would like to see you one day and drink a coffee with you and eat pizza with you out of few options in the pizza restaurant.
Absolutely.
I hope this day, one day, this day will come. Fingers crossed for it. And thanks a lot. I hope to see you again very soon.
Very well. Thank you so much. And
Thank you.
all the folks on the webinar, thank you all for attending the webinar, and we hope to see you soon in a follow-up webinar again. If you need to reach out to us, you have the contact information. We will share the slides and the recording in a follow-up email very shortly. Thanks a lot and have a great rest of the day.
See you.
Bye-bye.